why this trend happened. I really don't know. I mean, there was obviously government policy that wanted young people to get more healthy and more connected with sports, and obviously there were government-led initiatives that led to a huge amount of domestic funding, and obviously a lot of entrepreneurs in China, they want to please the government, so they started acting accordingly, and I think they thought the government wanted them to spend big money and invest in the biggest brands in the world, which they did. But then there was a lot of poor deals that happened. There was some bad, wasteful deals. But I mean, there's 36 football clubs across the world now, mostly in Europe, that have had a minority or full takeover from a Chinese investor or a Chinese investment group. So yeah, I think there's the egotistical side of investors. Some of them want to buy football clubs because it's a certain amount of prestige and status. But then a lot of it is, especially the Premier League and the Championship in England, it's actually, in my view, commercial sense. A lot of these football clubs are making very good EBITDA, a lot of them are profitable, and there's always a growing demand for football club acquisitions in the Premier League. So I think there was a multiple factors. But how can India do it better? I think don't go crazy on buying the biggest football clubs in the world with just crazy valuations. So I think look for the smaller deals which make sense commercially, and obviously look at the financials and do follow due diligence. A lot of the Chinese investors who acquired the football clubs, they really didn't have a strategic plan. They didn't have a proper business plan, and they just really jumped into it without really thinking about the long-term aspects of what they were doing.
Okay, thank you, Alex, for that. Sam, what are your views on investing in sports in the current context of India? You were in the UK and you are now investing out of India. What are your thoughts on investing in the sports sector in India as you see it? I take it that you don't have any investments in the sports sector just yet.
Okay. So we've had investments, we've exited successfully and unsuccessfully, right? So sports is a very different investment grade play. For anyone who, when we invest, we tend to try and understand the sector deeply. We look for specialists, we look for proven track record case studies. And as a family office, the primary directive is safeguard the wealth, right? It's not make ultra enormous returns. We're a bit unusual because we also believe in returning excess capital, and we've done so successfully. I think what we're seeing in India is, it's very interesting. I think there's a lot of opportunity here because unlike most parts of the world, which is cross-border, inbound or outbound, right? I mean, if we're honest about it, a lot of the Brits who invested in maybe the first football clubs didn't necessarily make that much money, right? A lot of them did it for status, did it for symbol. The same in Italy, maybe with one or two exceptions. The same in a few other parts of the world. That obviously wasn't the case in North America. In North America, a lot of the primary owners made disproportional wealth. So when we entered, we kind of like were trying to figure out what makes sense in sports investing. So we went tepidly and didn't look at the asset class of either ownership of clubs, and we didn't look at league platforms because there weren't that many available at the time. I mean, when we made our first investment, there was IPL that was just coming along, and we kind of like looked at it, scratched our heads and thought, is this really going to be a big thing? Boy, were we wrong, right? Because it's just a very different asset class. So it's a little bit like in the world of investing, and some of my fellow co-investors might get this, art is a different asset class, right? Real estate is a different asset class. A person who invests in real estate isn't typically the type of person who will do direct investments or investments as an LP into funds. It is not that typical. It's a different breed of investment. But coming back to the primary question, is there an opportunity? I think there's probably a huge opportunity because I think India is just desperate for consumption, and entertainment consumption here is disproportional. I mean, we have such a large human demographic overhang that they better have something to distract them or do. And if you're reading any of the outcome of the skill development programs, India is not doing too well there, right? I mean, it's doing something, but not as well as we need to. So really, we better hope that the entertainment distraction index takes over, because otherwise, you'll start having a lot of people who perhaps don't have good things to keep themselves busy, and therefore they'll start doing the wrong thing. And I think in many ways, sports, not necessarily just participating, but spectating, tends to be a big thing. I mean, I lived in Argentina during their political crisis in 2001. And I will tell you, the only thing that held that country together, even partially, was sports. It was not the government. They had 5 presidents in, 2 weeks. It was not their economy. It was not their bank accounts, because they lost everything, right? But sports somehow kept them together. I still remember going out to the Boca matches. And the Boca and River guys, yes, you still hated each other, but to a large extent, they still went, even though they barely had anything.
So, may I get to Matthew? Matthew, you have worked extensively in the UK, and you also know India a fair amount. What are your thoughts on where are the investment opportunities in the sports sector in India? Which are the 3 or 4 things that sort of are top of the mind and top priority from your perspective?
If I knew the 3 or 4 things, I'd pick them, bet on them, and leave. I think Sam's right. I think there's huge opportunity in India. You've got everything that everybody's been talking about today. You've got a huge population, a population that loves sport, loves entertainment, and at the moment you've got cricket, and then down here you've got a lot of other sports. I think from an investment point of view, going back to what Sam said, look, some people invest emotionally, and if you're very wealthy and you want to buy a team and invest emotionally, that's great. Actually, what we try to work with is investors who make investment decisions and make proper economic, financial decisions. I think and look, I'm not Indian, so I don't want to sound like a Gora that knows everything, because I certainly don't, but I think that things in India are obviously in the sports sector at an early stage, and that means investment decisions have got to be long-term investment decisions. You know, in certain mature markets like Western Europe and the US, you know, investors will, particularly private equity, will typically come in, make money in 3, 4, 5 years. India's not that market at the moment. This requires patient capital, and this requires people to take early stage businesses and go with them over the long term. But there is no question in my mind that in the next 10, 15, 20 years, as the Indian economy grows, as that youth population comes through, that there are going to be emerging sports businesses that are going to do incredibly well.
I'm still going to try and get you to focus in on 2 or 3 things where you would put your bets. You know, we can keep talking about how great the sports sector is.
I'll tell you, look, you know, as in every market, what everybody sees is teams, but actually there's a whole ecosystem of sport that is going to develop, which it doesn't matter who wins on a Saturday, and I mean retail. You know, sports retail in India is still very nascent. Infrastructure, we've been talking about it all day, pitches, gyms, all the things that people do, and Raghav, that's where I'd put my money, in the infrastructure, in those businesses that make up the ecosystem of sport. You know, if you buy a football team and it wins, great. If you buy a retailer and it's successful, it doesn't matter who wins, people will still come to your retailer. And those are the businesses.
Indians are good at that. You see, we own the corner shops around the world. Can I come to Pankaj? Pankaj is heading up, is it a $300 million thing now? $300 million fund for Bertelsmann in India, and he's invested in how many?
13 companies.
In 30 companies. You were here last year. What has stopped you from investing in sports?
So first of all,
are you looking at it? Pointed question.
So let me answer that in a second. First, let me congratulate you. Between last year and this year, I thought last year was a great conference that you did. This year, I feel the quality of the conference and the discussion is even better. So congratulations for doing that, and it's as good to be here. Very quickly, to answer your question, are we investing in sports? I think we are investing in sports. Now, for us, sports is not only investing in the core business of sports, but also everything around it. It could be sports management, it could be sports education, it could be wearable clothes, it could be online platforms that are getting built on and kind of collecting fans. It could be social commerce, etc. So there's a lot of things that for us is what we call as sports as a category. It's not just pure play events or stadiums or teams, etc., etc. So I think from that perspective, if I take a larger view of what sports as sports as a category is, I think we are definitely very excited. The way we look at sports as a sector, we think in India there are priority 1, priority 2 and priority 3 sports. Priority 1 sports is probably cricket and a couple of other sports which are already kind of big. Priority 2 would be tennis, badminton, etc., which are already becoming big football, but are not at the level of cricket, and then everything else is priority 3. And I would say there would be different business models, different opportunities, which would happen for all these 3 different priorities. And accordingly, we kind of look into opportunities. And then everything around that, whether it's sports management, sports education, etc., those are opportunities which are horizontal in nature, and we are happy to kind of invest in those. To give an example, in our investment iNurture, we are now launching sports management programs, undergrad and postgrad, by bringing a school called ECG, School of Sports Management, from France into India. And that is our contribution to what we are doing in the investing side for sports as a category.
That's fantastic. So I think, you know, Matthew, you at one level talked about the creation of an ecosystem, and that was the central theme of our discussions earlier this morning. And I think what you're talking about is, Pankaj, about the investments in the various rungs of that ecosystem out there, which if they flourish, then the entire sport will flourish as well. Absolutely. Can I get to Himanshu? Himanshu, you represent a lot of the high net worth individuals across India, running into hundreds. You've been hearing about the opportunities that are existent in the sports sector in India. What do you think will it take for the family offices, for the high net worth individuals to get focused on sports as an investment category?
So Raghav, I would say wealth creation in India is probably a 2-decade phenomena. Earlier, people used to park their money beside business either into property, gold, and maybe something into fixed deposits. Over a period of time, their comfort with the other asset classes like public equities or bonds, that has increased over a period of time. As scale of wealth will increase and investable surplus will be higher, it will also get into alternate asset classes. So alternate asset classes could be investment into early stage businesses, it could be into something which has a low correlation or no correlation with the traditional asset classes like property and all. So sports will also gain some momentum over a period of time. But I would say family offices, typically if I see, they are not the so-called leaders, they are the followers. So if there are some institutional investors who get interested in sports per se, and institutional investors will get into it if they see the businesses are scalable and they can see the exit opportunities in about 5 to 10 years kind of a time horizon. If that money starts coming in and that money starts seeing some amount of success, I think family offices will start getting into it. Today we see a lot of queries from our family offices where they want to understand this asset class. But primarily, if they have ever gone for it, it is because they are emotional about a particular sport,
or they are so passionate about it that they just want to give their name over there. Whether they make money or not, that's not the primary criteria as of today. But if serious business needs to be created about in this space, a bit of a track record needs to be established, a bit more organized sector, or maybe a way in which people become more comfortable with this asset class, that work needs to happen. So I would say alternate asset classes will gain tremendous importance going forward. They will have the highest growth rate going forward, but we will see couple of years before it becomes a recognized asset class, especially investment into sports. So today if I see, IPL is one of the biggest success. It is still about $400 million. The second best, which Kabaddi everyone talks about, is less than $10 million. So there is a huge difference between IPL and Kabaddi. And if I see developed markets,
Sorry, did you mean $10 million in what terms?
In terms of the size of the market, about
Kabaddi is doing over 140 crores now this year. So, you know, we have seen a serious
so
upsurge.
this is I'm talking about 2016 80 Kearney report.
Yeah,
so this is about 1.5 years back. Yeah. Now they also talked about developed markets. Sports are contributing, or sports outfits are contributing between 1 to 5% of GDP. In India, we are not even closer to 1% today. Right. And there's a huge potential as we go forward.
So this is where the media sector was 15 years ago. And you know, obviously, there are opportunities to invest at a certain valuation, and there will be opportunities to invest when you reach $1 billion. Alex, you know a little bit about this, yeah? You know, busy selling, you know, the more mature market assets, yeah?
Yeah. So if you look at the value of football clubs in India, now I don't think anyone could predict what happened to the Premier League in England. Now there must be 6 clubs now at least with a £1 billion plus valuation. Now, and that will happen to India. Now, there's the population, there is the demand. So just a question of time and, you know, and kind of structure, and how fast it gets there. But no, it really, I mean, obviously, internally, domestically, it has to focus on building itself. But really, it needs to become quite global. I think that's where the Chinese kind of, what they try to do, but they kind of mess up on, that they try to go global really fast by getting international players at crazy prices and wages. So I think India, if they look at it in the way of a soft power play, then I think that's the best way to look at it if you really want to make an impact globally. And obviously, by making that impact globally, you massively increase your value domestically if you get the commercial right and invest in hospitality and the sponsorship, naming rights, play image rights. Those spaces, if you focus on that, you're going to build a sustainable team.
Kunal, what are your thoughts on investing in sports in India? Where do you think we are?
So, I mean, I of course would speak from a point of view of the fund that I run. So, we're predominantly a technology-driven fund. So, we invest in opportunities where technology is not just an enabler, but is a core part of the business itself. So, for us, we look for a triangulation of sports, entertainment, and technology. So, we've been analyzing this space a lot, and what we've done is we've narrowed down opportunities in the esports arena that we've actually started making investments in, and we recently concluded a transaction. Till now, esports was growing relatively at a slow pace, and the reason for that was predominantly esports was being played either on the PC or on consoles, which had a very high entry barrier. But now with the proliferation of smartphones, high-speed internet, we've seen mobile esports take off, and it's predicted that over 300 million Indians will be playing esports on their mobile phone in the next 3 to 4 years. So for us, I mean, that's an opportunity that's too hard to resist. So our focus, of course, is on investing in platform plays which have sufficient operating leverages, which meet the requirements. And that's where we are focusing on. And I think apart from traditional sports, I think esports, for us at least, is an area that we definitely feel will probably achieve the kinds of level of success that cricket has
whereas other sports will probably take a much longer period of time.
Thank you. Gaurav, you are in a very unique position. Yeah? Your family company is has been in the educational services sector, being one of the largest publishers and whatever, and you are investing in technology, etc. as well. What do you make of the sports sector, and would that be something that you would be looking to invest in the near term?
To answer your second question first, would we be looking to invest in sports? Yes, we were, and we are. We actually looked at a deal, unfortunately it fell apart for some reason or the other. What do I feel on sports? Well, taking the perspective of education and sports. So Mr. Dosanjh earlier on in his question and answer session mentioned about how 60% of India's population is below the age of 24. So India has a larger school-going population than most countries have an entire population, right? So we have about 350 to 400 million odd school-going kids across 1.4 million schools. So if we take what India's current government is doing with the Khelo India program, we're trying to get sports proliferated to more and more schools. Unfortunately, I think the current biggest hurdle right now is that there's no real mandate from CBSE, ICSE, and CRT on sports, on extracurriculars. We did have a bit of a googly from the Honorable Education Minister over the weekend saying that he would reduce the curriculum by half. So maybe that's 50% more space for sports education to come in to the picture or come into the scenario. So we do have, for example, Gaja Capital invested $10 million in EduSports. EduSports right now is doing, I think, in excess of 50 crores of revenue. So I think from that perspective, seeing that we have such a massive student population and they are the current TG for sports, I think it is a great space for people to look at. We are actively looking at it. And more than that, I think if teams, for example, as Mr. Dosanjh earlier also said, that if someone like a Sher-e Punjab can plug into a player who's already got a large distribution in the ecosystem, I think that's a win-win-win situation for the team, for the investor, for the distribution company, as well as for the students and for the ecosystem as a whole. I think there was also some talk earlier as well about the ecosystem being built up over time. Having talked to EduSports, one of the biggest issues that they're facing is that finding it hard to find the right human capital, so find right trainers to come in and service the schools. So even we have a lot of people coming in from Africa, from Eastern Europe, because in India we're just not able to cultivate the right in-house talent. I think with ISL coming up, with the Kabaddi League, with Super Fight League coming up, I think students will see more and more of an opportunity to make a real living out of getting a sports education and then feeding into that ecosystem. So it should be a virtuous cycle going forward. So I think on the education and sports intersection, I think things are all pretty good right now, and hopefully things should be getting better. I think it's a great space for people to look at, and we would continue to look at that as our company has chance.
Can I just ask you a follow-on question here?
Yes, please.
Because you deal with schools a lot.
Yes.
Okay. Would you invest in investment opportunities which have got to do with, which are centered around schools and colleges? Would that be of interest to you as a investor?
Yes, in fact, we did look at one. It fell apart due to DD issues, but we were looking at it and we will actively continue to look at it.
That's fascinating. So all those people who are looking at grassroots level sort of businesses in sports, you can see that there is sustained interest here to be investing at that level. Let me get back to Pankaj here for a second. Pankaj, what stops established guys like you from looking at mainstream sports rather than all the support services, which is the less risky part?
So I think that tech investing is actually a lot more risky, and choosing winners is quite difficult. But just talking about this general theme, if we look at our databases and we figure out that globally, in the new emerging sports tech and neo sports type of areas, in the last 5 years, roughly about 4,000 plus companies were founded, out of which about 1,000 plus companies or 1,100 plus companies got funded. There is enough amount of activity on the entrepreneurial side happening for investors to choose the right investments. In India, if I look at the last 5 years, roughly about 100 companies have been founded, out of which 26 companies have gotten some kind of investing from venture capitalists. I feel the momentum is fairly low right now. There is a large opportunity. We need strong entrepreneurs to come and build interesting concepts, and we will be happy to back them. But we don't see that happening on a fairly active basis right now.
Okay, but you would be open provided there were these substantial entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. I mean, all around the world, I think Bertelsmann globally, whether it's through our media business or through our investments businesses, deploy more than $1 billion per year on sports. So yes, we are very active in sports, both in buying media as well as making direct investments in businesses, including owning a football club in France, investing in analytics companies, data companies that are centered around sports, OTT platforms around football, etc. So globally, we are doing a lot of things. In India, we just don't see that play yet. I'm sure it's a matter of time. In a year or two, they will come and we will make those investments.
Sam, you wanted to ask
Yeah, actually, how do you spot them? Because when we meet most of the sports entrepreneurs out here, they're very different, right? So, I mean, we passed on Edu Sports way back when, right? And I mean, it was a mistake, clearly. And we backed some of the other ones that have disappeared now, no longer, as I call them, the part of the soil. How would you spot them? They are very, very different to the tech entrepreneurs out there.
That is true, and I would say they would probably come from more sports background than tech background, and that's where you would see the difference. We also see that if I take examples of other sectors where we see such a phenomena, even in education or healthcare, we see healthcare and education professionals coming and building health tech and ed tech companies, and yes, that DNA is different. The way to build that is to get other tech founders to join that company and have that DNA combined between tech and sports. But hey, I think, which is why we like to take bets in this segment at a little later stage than coming at a seed or angel stage. We would rather kind of wait for the companies to be at least $5 to $10 million of revenue before we kind of invest in them.
I think that let's break this down, guys. I think that there are 2 or 3 types of investments in sports. First are the brand ownership type things, the big bang leagues and, big competitions, etc., etc. Those require serious funding. There's no doubt about that, because you got to build a brand at a national level. You got to sort of appeal to all of that, all right? So there's that whole thing out there. Apart from cricket, there's, the ISL guys are trying to do something, and they're backed by Reliance, which is a major group. Okay, so that's one. But there are a whole lot of others who have sprung from nowhere and have had great success. Okay, so I think there has to be something to be said for some of these entrepreneurs. And you're right, Himanshu, Kabaddi last year did have 40 crores, but this year has gone to 140 crores. Okay, so I think that you will find that there are many scenarios such as this which rapidly get built out. And I think the whole sort of trick is to figure out what has the capability of doing that. And if I may, in a very different way, say that in an Indian context, and that's my sort of general feeling, is that the funds and everybody else are not used to sports in a sense, okay? Technology as an investment sort of a category has been on for 15, 20 years. So, over the 15, 20 years, the people who are taking the calls on making these investments have gotten used to it. Just as you say that, there are not many managers for sports sector in India, I would say that a lot of the funds and other angel funds, etc., would not have an understanding of how the sports sector grows. And therein lies a big issue out there. And that is the subject matter of this discussion, as to how do you get out of that loop in that sense. Sam, do you want to just comment on that?
That was the question I was trying to figure out, because, I mean, I think you're exactly right. I mean, when I sit on the board of the 10 Angels, and when we look at companies, we've made one investment in sports, in the wearable space. So it's a sports tech. And it was a struggle when we went about asking. It almost felt like a begging bowl, trying to figure out who would be willing to risk and lose a little bit of money on a punt. Because it is just very, very different to a sports company, like I think it was very different to sports and art company, because it's just a different asset class, is my gut.
And actually, I think the one market where it's matured is the US. Even in Western Europe, it's still very much like that. It's seen as a sort of entertainment, slightly frivolous, difficult thing to get your arms around investment. In the US, I think they've absolutely spotted that it's an industry, and they understand it as an asset class. But I think you're right, it's just different to a finance company or a tech company or a consumer product company.
Well, which is why a lot of the products, and the next session is about that, and there are marketers in this group out here, and we'll talk to them. But brand building takes money, it takes time, it takes effort, and the people who are sitting on the capital need to understand that, that they are in for the medium term on that.
But actually, one of the things you asked, and I can't remember who you asked the question of, you said, why are you investing in things which are less risky? And that's the answer. Because, if you're running a family office or a bank, it's about risk management. And, these early stage sports businesses, not just sport, but early stage businesses in an early stage industry, going back to what I said, requires patient capital and it's risk. It's more venture capital than it is private equity.
Well, there are ways of de-risking it, and the branding guys will tell you what are the ways of de-risking it. Bill has been talking about, how he's been, talking to various Bollywood stars, etc., trying to get all sorts of people to endorse your product in a sense. So that is one way of de-risking your product. But Himanshu, very quickly, when you invest, okay, when your family offices invest, etc., there must be X% of money that is for, sunrise sector and slightly more risky and whatever. Is there something that you need to be doing, to be talking to these people, to saying, look, 10 of you can get together to be funding, $30 million for this venture, which for the following reasons could be the next football. And I can tell you that, earlier during the day when the minister was here, we were talking about a few of these sports and the entire ecosystem and the mass seeding of sports that in itself is an investment category out there, which could be hugely profitable. Is there something that you need to be doing to be educating your potential investors?
So over there, Madhav, I would say right now track record is not there, but if we see some of the international most sophisticated investors like Sam Balmer or Paul Allen, they have done huge amount of investment from their family offices and has seen a good track record. In India, we have seen someone like Mukesh Ambani, who is one of the most sophisticated investors, came out, participated in IPL and has made some money out of it. In fact, Saturday in Chennai, I met up with the GMR family, and I was speaking to them and asking them what is their experience. So it has taken 10 years, but now 10 years they are seeing some money to be made. So what we need to do is we need to see some of the case studies of sophisticated investors coming, making money, and that needs to be marketed phenomenally well. Because today, as I mentioned, most of us are doing it on the basis of our emotion, or we want to contribute positively towards the sports, because that can create huge opportunities for our country. But taking such opportunities to some of the marquee investors and marketing them well, and certain case studies coming out and then highlighting that, I think that will help this space to evolve. If we go to even tech space, way back in 95, 96, some of the marquee deals which happened at that point in time, India World, so .com actually got created, Flipkart, e-commerce space got evolved. Similarly in sports, let's say if today Mukesh Ambani's venture in IPL, it gets a listing. Maybe there will be hundreds of investors who would like to then follow those things. So I would say opportunity is huge. We just need couple of good case studies. And coming back to your question, would we like to take it to our few HNIs? I would say yes, because as their scale of wealth is increasing, they need opportunities to diversify beyond traditional asset classes. So even if we say 3 to 5% of their wealth could go into alternate asset classes and some portion comes towards sports, I think there could be adequate supply of capital compared to the demand what we have today.
I think that's a wonderful point, and we'll talk further on that. My general sense in all of this, after talking to a whole bunch of people who are connected with the sport, etc., is that you've got to try and marry the capital and the flavor of that capital to the opportunity. And in a completely new sector, that there is an imbalance there, and it takes a little time for that balance to come through. And the objective of conferences such as this is to carry this message. So through the videos and everything else, this is going to go to many, many people. So it's not just the 10 of us out here discussing stuff and the 100 other people out there. It's going to go to many other places. Matthew.
And the opportunity is huge. You're in a sunrise economy, a young economy, a sunrise industry. I mean, the opportunities in sport in India over the next 10 or 15 years are going to be incredible. And we've heard about it all day, about the youth, about the growth, and it's everything from grassroots to the very top. The opportunities are immense.
Kunal, any thoughts there?
Oh, just one. What I've realized in 2.5 years of investing in India, it's never opportunities, it's always the execution that decides the winners from the losers.
That's absolutely true, and I think in terms of execution, you will be surprised as to how many people are springing up in order to deliver things. And this whole thing of execution is going to go to the next level. Think about it. If we are talking about grassroots level competitions and academies and events around that, etc., execution of all of that at that humongous scale is going to be huge.
Absolutely. I mean, it's huge, and what we've realized is that in India, the opportunities are massive. Execution is the key, and it's people who recognize that this is going to be a long marathon race, but a long marathon race consisting of 100-meter sprints. And that's probably one important thing that which we tell all our founders is that it's going to take a lot of stamina. It's ironical that we're talking about sports here, but it's a sports analogy which is applicable to every industry that we've invested in.
Gaurav, in terms of investments, do you look at yourself as an active business partner, or do you look at yourself as an investor? In either scenario, what is the average ticket size that you and your partners, whoever you would be collaborating with at the back end, what is the average ticket size for sports ventures that you're comfortable with?
So we look at both scenarios. We do see ourselves as an investor, but an investor where we can add not just money, but something over and above money. Because I personally feel that in education, distribution is the key, and having a distribution to about 25, 30,000 odd schools does give us a leg up on the competition. So we do see ourselves as a partner in the growth and in the profit segment of the investments that we make. We look at investments, well actually, I mean, if I take previous examples, we've looked at everything from 20 lakhs to 150 crores. So, similarly, anything to do in education, we're open to ticket sizes of the same range in education, in sports education as well, so long as we see it to be a good opportunity for us. And as Kunal already mentioned, execution is the key. Opportunities are, there are many of them in India, but it's all about the execution.
All right. Any questions from the house out there? Lots of hands going up. Is somebody got the mic out there? Can somebody run with the mic to the people, please? Okay, go on, Bill.
So I've listened to obviously all the panel, what they had to say, which was really interesting. And it's a question for Himanshu. I think the case studies that we're looking for have already, the blueprint is there. One is obviously the IPL. It took 10 years for it to become profitable. And the Kabaddi League is profitable, so that you've seen something from ground zero up, and you've seen something which had a huge following already rise. So I think if we're looking for blueprints, it's already there. It's the right product. That what is it going to take other sports leagues, like you said, this Pankaj said, tier 2, tier 3. So, but until you guys don't start backing certain sports where you feel, okay, it's got potential, everything else is, secondary. So I think it's really important that look at the case studies that we've had. Both have been successful in their own way, whether it's cricket or kabaddi. But I think the initiative from you guys has to be taken on certain. And talking about, Kunal, about execution, I mean, you've attended what we're doing, and I would like to give you, for you to give a feedback on the execution. But I know there's certain different levels of execution, but as far as international standards of the product that what we delivered, I'm sure I would like you to kind of share that. So, Himanshu, I would love for you to actually take a deep dive in kind of what we're doing and actually see how we can take this conversation forward as well. I think the case study's there. I think where we're looking for answers, it's definitely already been answered.
I think, if I may just add to that, Himanshu, I think the point he's making is that, and you know, there's something that all of us need to do, okay, is collectively how do we put together some of the case studies, you know, which have been the more successful ones, so that we can share it in forums such as this, okay? So I would encourage all of us to work collaboratively. This is not anybody, you know, any specific person's forum. This is a forum for all of us to sit down and decide. And maybe the opportunity is, Bill, to your point, is to strengthen the hands of all of these people. Don't forget, you know, they're running after the low-hanging fruit out there, okay? So, you know, if sports is coming along and, you know, they're being forced to come to a event such as this and say, yes, we are interested, I think we've got to bolster their hands. We've got to do something in terms of creation of stuff so that they can then talk sensibly to all their people.
No, thanks very much for that feedback. I would agree with Raghav that this industry needs to be developed and it's a collective responsibility. In fact, still few years back, we never saw seminars or conferences happening around sports. Today, I must compliment that these kind of things have started happening. So it will take some time, and certainly certain case studies will act as a trigger for the market. And that is something which we'll be taking it forward, sir.
Hi.
Please identify yourself as well.
My name is
Sorry, I think Bill wanted to point. So I just wanted to, I've been personally to a couple of his events and talked about execution. I think he's executed a world-class product here in India, something we should all be proud of. I would definitely consider him. Unfortunately, from a funds perspective, it didn't meet the third requirement, which is technology as a center. But I would definitely think that if people who are looking for investments and who run consumer brands, I think products like that will definitely have a large amount of what you call upside going forward.
Bill, I'll send you a video clipping of what he said, all right? So that will be a great testimonial for you, yeah? Right, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Piyush. I run a boutique consulting firm where I work a lot with sports and gaming startups. So my question is to Pankaj. Very interestingly, you brought about the DNA of an entrepreneur, right? And having been in technology myself, we see nowadays a lot of technology-driven guys wanting to jump in the sports bandwagon because they are passionate about it. But there's a massive gap between sort of early stage, sort of pre-Series A financing, which is where guys like yourself will come generally at a Series A and beyond. And guys will come, passion will drive the angel funding. But the middle gap is where you see 80% of these startups decaying and dying away. So what would you think of there? Is there a solution about educating more angel guys or sort of more investors? Because that's where I see a massive gap, and the technology sector of sports is not able to grow because they're not able to reach the place where people like yourself can take it to the next level.
No, that's a good point. I think what we've been seeing in the last 5 years is that angel and Series A market is actually flourishing. It's doing very well. More than 100 funds exist, and they are backing anywhere between 10 to 20 companies per fund per year. We don't see that there's a gap in the market. If you're a good entrepreneur with a great business plan and you have good metrics, getting angel funding and Series A funding is not the issue. However, when you go to Series B and Series C funding, there is a vacuum in the market that is right now being called as valley of death. There are very few investors who are kind of investing in that space, and that is a challenge. How do you manage on that point? I would say raise larger angel and Series A checks and run your business frugally, and you'll be able to bypass that valley of debt and raise larger rounds of money later on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? One last question. Okay, this is the last question. Then we are headed to a really exciting forum and roundtable on marketing. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this panel. It is very, very, very inspirative. I would say that if I'm not wrong, the fastest growing industries in India are food, tourism, healthcare, education and training, and retail. Everything connected with sport is an opportunity, a big opportunity. And what I want to ask you is if there is any platform for connection for all the commercial interests or all the change makers, because I like to name the investors as change makers, because once you push and once you get the wheel go round, a big change will be made. So I just want to know if it is any kind of cluster or any kind of platform in which you can get safe for your analysis and from a perspective of investors in your country. Is there this platform?
I think that's a wonderful point. I think, you know, as you know, these gentlemen are from Spain, and they've done some fascinating work in terms of growing the sports sector. The government has taken the right steps out there. They inducted coaches from around the world out there. They mobilized the corporate sector to be investing in sports. They've sort of integrated various facets of the economy with the sports sector and intertwining it so that there are common sort of objectives to be achieved out there. Anybody wants to answer that? But, you know, I'll tell you something. The NASSCOM, which is the IT sector's trade body, does that very, very effectively. The sports sector, apart from cricket, only recently in the last 2-3 years has started to really expand out. Okay, and you were talking about the rates of growth. We heard in the morning that the rate of growth in the sports sector in India is over 20%. The Indian economy is growing at 6.5–7%, as you know. Okay, so it is one of the fastest growing sectors in the country, and I have no doubt in my mind that all the investors look at the tech guys. Okay, they are looking at all the ways in which technology can be latched on to various parts of sports, because they understand this, and okay, there are 300 million people going to be watching this stuff out there, so there's something to be done in technology out there. And that's the way it's going to begin. But, you know, my question is wider. I think the opportunity is there to create $100 million valuation sports businesses in India. We are not tinkering with, you know, let's create something which is going to create a value of 10 million, 20 million kind of thing. These are 100 million plus businesses that are going to emerge. Let's, you know, Matthew knows. Do you know how many athletic leisure businesses there are in China which are homegrown? Anybody can take a guess? Apart from the Nikes and Adidases of the world, there are at least 40 people who have valuations of more than $200 million. And there are 4 people out there who got valuations of more than $3 billion. So you can imagine there are tremendous opportunities in things connected with sport as you go forward. So I think that the time will come when the various people will start to talk to each other, and hopefully this forum, look at it. I mean, you know, no sports forum in the country till date has a finance roundtable. We have a finance roundtable. It's with a view to integrating with the finance sector. The next step is the technology sector. We are going to have, you know, last year we had Saurabh Srivastava, the ex-chairman of NASSCOM, on this panel as well. Okay, so we're going to have more technology people, etc. But, you know, your suggestions are welcome. You know, let's see how we can expand this out, because this is a conversation that we need to keep going. Yeah. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Please hang on to your seats, because, you know, coming on is a very riveting part, which is how do you create sports brands? What is the role of marketing in creating sports brands? And I have no doubt in my mind that, when you're creating large things, just the marketing spend on that can be humongous. So Bill, we would love your views on that, so just hang on to your seat out there. To this panel, thank you very much. May I, as a token of appreciation, hand you some mementos. All right, may I request Ashu from the Hindustan Times to come through. May I request Swapngeet from Colors Television to come through. Mohammed, may I request you to come up on stage, please. Is Porush here? Hi, Porush. Come on up. Come, Ashu. Come, Swapngeet, come this side. Yeah. You'll sort of balance it out. एक दो कुर्सियाँ निकाल देना यार. Porush, hi, welcome. Okay. Guys, take your seats, please. Hello, Sam. Would love your attention there. Okay. Get your cups of coffee. Come right back. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Guys, can we organize some coffee here? भैया सबके लिए जरा एक कॉफी ला दे यार प्लीज. शुक्रिया आपका. Thank you. All right. Thank you everybody for being here. And as you have seen through the day, Ashu, you were not there earlier in the morning, but what your guys are doing in terms of some grassroots level things. There are 3-4 types of things that were discussed. The big sort of league level, big brands that are being created in sports, the opportunity for doing grassroots level stuff, okay, is a real opportunity that people are talking about. And I think what is also very interesting is that there are so many leagues, etc. There are so many leagues, etc. that are, yeah, please. Come. Yeah, can we have another chair, please? There are so many leagues and grassroots level things that are being contemplated at the moment, okay? I would like to begin with you, Swapngeet, okay? You're from a television channel, you head up the marketing out there, and you guys have done some interesting stuff on sports as well, even though you are a mainstream general entertainment channel.
Right.
Okay?
That's right. So, hi, good evening everyone. When I sit here, I don't only wear a marketer's hat, but I also wear a broadcaster's hat. And as Raja rightly pointed, we call ourselves a Hindi general entertainment channel. Now, in this country, like somebody mentioned before, entertainment is not just Bollywood or TV. Entertainment is sports, entertainment is cricket. So why should we as marketeers restrict our programming to just TV shows, reality shows and soaps? There's a small step that we've taken, through our various brands like MTV, VH1, where we've associated with a lot of sporting events.
Yeah, go on.
So to begin with, with Colors, we associated with this sporting event called Pinkathon. I don't know how many of you are aware of Pinkathon. It's a marathon only for women. Now, it's a great initiative that was started by Maximus, and we as a channel believe a lot in women empowerment. And we thought, what better than a platform to get all the women to talk about their health? We believe in the fact that the health of the family begins with the health of a woman, and hence we want to partner with all such causes that support the health of a woman. As a network, we have associated with a whole lot of other opportunities as well. Like MTV recently convened the U-Cypher's e-gaming thing. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. U-Cypher is an e-gaming sport, and MTV was the only channel in the country to actually give it that fillip which it required. Mr. Dosanjh also mentioned the Super Fight League. MTV has been airing the Super Fight League for a very long time. And MTV is a youth entertainment channel. We would like to believe that the youth of today want to connect with you through a whole lot of entertainment. And if it's sports, then it is sports.
Thank you. That's insightful. Can I just come to Ashu? Ashu, you wear two hats. You're here as a representative of the media, as well as you do, a sporting asset. You guys own a sporting asset which you do at the grassroots levels. I want you to put on your hat as a media professional, okay? You represent one of the largest print newspapers in the country. What role do you think that you need to play as media in order to grow this sector out, which worldwide is huge, but in India is just sort of setting out to do? What are your thoughts on that? And, are your colleagues on the editorial and everything else, do they need to be sort of helped along a little bit?
Hi. No, that's a good question. I'll just share data with you. We in the newspaper we have the sports section, and I'll share data over 5 years what's changing in terms of readership and content, and how readers are coming back to us in terms of what they're looking at and what they want from the paper, and how we are responding to that, and how that's related therefore to monetization and the whole thing around brand and marketing, etc. So 5 years ago, the sports section in my paper would be the number 2 or number 3 in terms of content, in terms of the number of stories we ran. The first piece would be metro stories, and then nation stories, and then we would go to sports. What's changed now is that if you pick up the Hindustan Times today, we actually have 3 pages on sports alone, and that's the largest content commitment we give on the paper vis-a-vis other sections. And that's driven by demand from readers, right? And this is in fact larger than what most other newspapers do, because this is how the environment is changing rapidly because of the kind of people who read the paper and what they're looking at. If you come to content, 5 years ago, 2.5 pages of the paper would be cricket. Today, interestingly, it's 1 page which is dedicated to cricket. There's about 3/4 of a page that's dedicated to football, and we have more than a page that's dedicated to other sport beyond these 2 games. And this is being driven by readership profiling that we do. 5 years ago, 91% of our readers would only want to read cricket, and we had about 30% of readers looking at other sports. Now, this 91% is down to 84% in terms of people wanting to read about cricket, and then more and more readers looking at football, looking at tennis, looking at hockey. So in terms of our role, Raghav, I think we can play a significant role. We are reaching out to massive number of readers, right? And I think one of these sections which is most engaging in the newspaper today beyond the front page is sports. Right. And we are trying at our level to not only look at just reportage in terms of pure reportage of an event, because a lot of that is already picked up by the channel, or you've seen the cricket match the day before. You don't want to read about it the next day. So we're trying to get into what is known as the analytics about it, what's gone behind scenes around it, so that engagement kind of gets developed and built around it. And we are more than willing, because we run this property called HT Chifa, which is a grassroots program, is now India's largest neighborhood football event. We are more than willing to actually engage with other sports and federations and bodies who are trying to build sport at different levels. and use our paper not only to spread awareness around it, but build engagement with readers, just beyond, not just beyond information, but something beyond that as well.
Right.
And
no, thank you for that. Mohammed, I'm going to come to you in a second, okay? But before that, Varun, can you talk to us about what your thoughts are in the current context of building out brands in sports? And how are you guys looking at it?
So, building brands using sport as a medium beyond cricket is relatively new to the country. And I think that there have been some very, very standout success stories in that, but the number is still limited, purely driven by the fact that marketeers themselves, traditionally in India, because other sports were not part of the culture, have not been exposed to using them as an integrated platform beyond media buying. So media buying has obviously existed for a long time, and that as sport as a medium for media buying is one of the top mediums. But beyond that, a 360-degree integration is something that lesser brands have been able to do in terms of number. But I'll quote a few brands which have done this very successfully. So if you look at, for instance, journey of brands like, small brands like SRMB Steel, which is a steel manufacturer in the East, or homegrown brands like Cycle Agarbatti in a segment which, for instance, never existed as a proper business segment. These are brands which are leveraging sport. They started their journeys with pure media buying, but are now leveraging it in a much deeper way. What has really helped in the last 5 years is sort of the convergence of traditional media buying, digital, and the opportunities for brands to leverage digital as a platform to take it beyond that. And I think that's where, even though a lot of experience in building sport culturally may not exist with marketeers, there is increasingly now an appetite to use digital, which as it is as a medium allows you to go beyond just traditional media buying. I think in the next 5-7 years, we'd have a much larger number of brands. I mean, Micromax is a standout story of what sport can deliver for a brand as a segment leader. But I think that number, rather than being 5 or 7 brands, in the next 5 years will become maybe 30-40 indigenous brands, which would have had a journey where sport has had to play a very critical role. And I think that they will go to the extent of community participation and community building, which is the one thing which is missing from, let's say, our brand journeys right now in sport versus the Western stories, right? And I think the minute we crack that, and I think beginning to do that a little bit with football, a little bit with kabaddi beyond cricket, but I think the minute that community engagement for brands becomes bigger, the overall exercise you will notice will take a sudden leap, and the number of brands participating will go up.
Thank you for that.
Can I just add a point here? What is very important and critical for marketers is the ROI. Wherein sports like cricket deliver a huge ROI with IPL giving ratings like 3s and 4s, and the ICC Cricket World Cup also giving a lot of ratings. I think Pro Kabaddi League or ICL have not been able to deliver on the ratings so much, and that is more because of the lack of awareness amongst the grassroots level. It is on us as media to ensure that these sports reach actually the nook and cranny. If you would look at the viewership numbers, rural viewership numbers are as high as urban. So why can't we all collectively make an effort to go down and create awareness? Which is when the numbers of these kind of games will also spike up. See the returns and a lot of brands investing in that.
I think that's a fantastic point of view, Sapangit. I think the onus is on us to be delivering a lot of things. It's not just good enough to say, I've started up this league, I had these 5 players and I got these 5 international players, and away we are going, okay? You get a couple of Bollywood guys and away you go. I think there's a whole bit of education involved out there. There's a whole bit of effort in terms of, going to each and every place and sort of seeding that brand in all of those places. May I come to Mohammed? Mohammed, you are from Abu Dhabi, and the football club there, the pride of Abu Dhabi, has got an amazing sort of a brand association. What do you guys do in order to build out your brand and to sustain it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, what you see is that if we're talking about a football club, it's also a brand. So now I will speak about the football club. The classical mistake what I actually everywhere see in the world is that a football club go to outside, to external, and ask money for a sponsorship Maybe you can do that 25 years ago, but this time it's over. So my suggestion was, first create the content, okay? Create a database, and that's why I really respect how La Liga did it in the Middle East, because what they did is they give attractive football to the fans, so everyone in the Middle East become in love. Barcelona, Real Madrid, doesn't matter. And when they had the database, from that they start to sell the TV rights. Very smart. In India, you have a big potential, like the CEO of Delhi Dynamos is sitting here, and I spoke with him, a very, very smart guy. But what he should do is very simple, attract at least 50 million people who is following his club. And with that database, he can go around all the world, and he can get the sponsorship whatever he wants. And that is what we did also with Aziz. So I start not from the external part, hey, we are Al Jazeera, you need to give us money. No, I turn it around. And when I turn it around, there's more effect. And of course, the FIFA World Cup for teams, in December we played against Real Madrid. We even almost beat them. But okay, this is a different story. But that, of course, that helps also a lot, you know, because there's the brand awareness. Without brand awareness, you cannot do nothing. But I think that a lot of football clubs need to change the mindset and not thinking, hey, we are this club, so you need to come to us. That time is over.
Thank you. You know, this is really fascinating. You know, you represent the television media. Ashu represents the print media. You know, we've heard a little bit about the technology, you know, sort of, which is going to play a increasing role in determining who is watching what, and, you know, there is some accountability there as well. More than in television, frankly, if you ask me, because, you know, you don't know what the wastage percentage there is, etc., etc. And Mohammed just talked about, hey, you just got to go out and build a big brand, and you need to know who your viewers are, who your fans are, etc., etc. Porush, you are trying to do something pretty unique, okay? Can you talk us through that, and what's the implication for sports assets to be building out brands in the context of what you're doing?
So I'll just, am I audible? I was. So I'll just give you a brief history of sports here. The whole idea was, we started in 2009, and the idea was that India needs a sports website. There were a couple of, the CrickBuzz and CrickInfo was around, was there that time. A lot of big media websites had a cricket tab, they never had a sports tab. So I said to myself, India needs a sports website, let's try to build something. And the support we got was overwhelming. We were able to gather 100 writers in like 2 months. We got listed in Google News, and suddenly a college startup turned into a media company in 2 months without actually investing something. Things got interesting, we got funding. Now SportEX.Asia is a technology platform for content. Anyone here can just log into SportEX.Asia, submit an article, it will get moderated and published on SportEX.Asia if it is good enough. 8,500 writers are active on SportEX.Asia. It's more than number of writers that are active on Wikipedia in India, or number of editors who are there on Wikipedia in India. Now, what we have seen is now we got funding 4 years back, we were professionalized, and we are one of the few startups which is profitable. We have been running profitably from 3 years. We have 90 people now.
Did you speak to Gaurav Jhunjhunwala?
We have to speak now.
Okay, I think Suribi is somewhere here, he should connect you there.
So the next step for us is that we see that a lot of smaller leagues need our support in marketing their event in India, or to make them more professional, to maybe even ask more dollars from their sponsors. We are getting into live streaming. Interestingly, IPL chairman just said that there 5 state leagues are going to start, cricket leagues. Most probably they will not, maybe they will, maybe they will not, but there is less chance that they will be on Sony or ESPN. But, and they need a revenue model. See, if you look at all the big sports brands, be it IPL, be any sport league, their biggest client is a media company. And in India, if it's only Sony and ESPN which is supporting the whole ecosystem, it will not work out. Technology brings you the third ecosystem. You can directly ask money from the consumers. Say suppose an Odisha cricket league, if it just takes 5 rupees from say 10 lakh fans in Odisha directly from the consumer, and now with Page, Paytm and so many different payment gateways, it's very easy. So that is where we are going. That is, we will see how it goes.
Sachet pricing for sports, yeah?
Exactly.
Okay, I get the point. Sriranga, you've been hearing this debate. What's going on in your mind?
Hi everyone. So just to give you guys a quick background, we run India's largest digital outdoor platform. So there's television, radio, and I guess there's print, and there's digital OH.
It does exist, not I guess, it does exist.
Yes, of course, yeah. Yes. So I think, we're talking about brands and opportunities of monetization and reaching out to consumers. So just to take digital OH as an example, we reach 120 million people on a monthly basis. We are present in 400 railway stations, engage with all the travelers out there. And so now we're exploring opportunities on how do you engage from a content perspective with the consumers out on the front. So for example, we're building properties, which are sporting properties on a medium, and where you can give a lot of player profiles, you can do a lot of real-time score updates, because all the displays are managed through the cloud on a real-time basis. So it almost amplifies a lot of the sporting kind of opportunities that are there, and brands can engage and benefit from this as well.
It's fascinating. How many...
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so, but I had a question, and I asked this as a commoner, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so you have these OOH digital screens, okay, across 100 and?
400.
400?
Railway stations across 16 states.
400 railway stations, and how many screens?
2,200 as of today.
2,200 and growing, yeah?
Yeah.
So, these screens, normally, the people who look at it, okay, would be for utility purposes, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And are you suggesting that sports is almost a utility now? It's not a luxury?
Spot on. I think from utility, one angle, but also from a engagement perspective, right? I mean, today, if you look at content on any other form of medium, how important a role it plays, even on the digital OH platform, content plays a great role as well. So utility for a local commuter, maybe more ticket relevant information and those sort of information, but I think it's more from an engagement perspective is what content like this plays. So
have you done any research as to, because it's interesting, you've got 2,000 screens and you'll probably go to 50,000 screens or whatever it is, you'll get funded tomorrow and you'll get to 50,000 screens. And you're thinking about, okay, what do I tell my investors, okay? And you're thinking, okay, I want to tell him this story about content, right? Have you done some research on this to figure out that sports is on the horizon for these consumers?
We have done sports, but just I'm going to pick on what Varun actually said from a pure media perspective, where people would actually spend just based on ROI and what is the reach and what is the engagement. So we have done a lot of that for our medium, so I think don't buy our medium just for the sake of looking at it from just purely what is the reach and what is the spends per reach, but there is also an engagement perspective that comes through it. So there's a lot of case studies that are built where, pre-campaign, post-campaign. In fact, one of the clients we do a lot of work with is with Amazon, where because they're so big on sports, we actually do a lot of sports updates on our medium, and Amazon actually not only uses our medium just from an advertising perspective, but also from this content engagement perspective.
That's fascinating. Look, there was a comment made earlier that unique ways of promoting your brand and the sport. Okay. No, not even 20 years, 18 years in the making, satellite television, okay? Yeah.
98 is when Z came in, 2000
Yeah,
is when
correct.
Star
Yeah,
came
it was
into
at
the country,
the Gulf War, okay? And so 18 years, it's already seen as traditional, and all of these guys are coming along and offering all of these things. How will this whole thing be packaged together in creating brands for the future?
So, digital is a reality. Nobody is denying that. Yeah. We will not say that, TV is dying and, digital will not take over. No, none of the debates are happening here. I would just like to ask everybody sitting here one question. How many people had network issues here today sitting in this hall? I mean, I for one didn't get my 4G. Yeah, I mean, I see a couple of people raising hands. So we are still living in a country where, though digital is really catching up, but there are issues, there are bandwidth issues, there are a whole lot of issues. So,
can I ask you, were you on the SportEX Wi-Fi thing or you were on your own?
No, I was not 4G. Yeah.
There is a SportEX Wi-Fi thing available, guys, if you want to get access.
And Raghav, we are sitting in Delhi. We are not even sitting in Rourkela or a place like that. So I understand that, eventually there will be parallel streams being created on the digital platforms for consumption of content and especially sporting events. But will television play a lesser role? The answer is no. Today also, that if you were to put a percentage to digital consumption versus television consumption, it's around 1/4 of the total consumption. It's evolving as an ecosystem, but there's still a long journey to go. So yes, we've been there for 20 years, but are we still the very dominant medium? Yes. Are we being threatened? Yes. Do we think that digital will overtake us sometime? I think there's still quite a far way to go for that.
Okay, so as I'm sitting here, I'm getting butterflies out here, okay? For the simple reason, life has become too complex. You want to go out and create a brand today, okay? Is Vinit in the house? Yeah, okay, so he's busy creating ESP properties, Group M, busy creating properties out there. All of these guys have a big problem, okay, which is how do you market the damn thing, okay, and how do you position it, all right?
Sports events?
Yeah, exactly, okay, because there are so many sub-parts out there, i.e. there is traditional television, there is print out there. Digital is not digital, there are 1,500 variations of digital out there, okay, and you've got to be perhaps there in all of them to be creating a meaningful impact out there. My question is, apart from the likes of a few large agencies who may claim to have that sort of expertise, and I doubt that as well, okay, there are very few professionals who would be able to stride that thing and offer a seamless sort of a proposition to build out a brand, okay. I come from the era when we built out satellite television brands. It took advertising agencies 4 years to figure out that they had to put in money and not on Doordarshan, okay. I also helped start up FM radio in this country, okay, and it took maybe 3.5 years for people to start putting little bits of money into FM radio. Digital, we know, took forever, and it's now taking off in a way. But when all of this has gotten sort of bifurcated and, and divided into so many digital parts, okay, isn't it a humongous task to be delivering a number, ROI? How do you measure all of this? Varun, your thoughts on that?
So that's a very pertinent question, and that's a very pertinent debate nowadays, given the fragmentation of consumption in mediums both. But I don't think there's a one fix to it, but there's an interesting fix to it, which may work for a lot of people. One of the key reasons why sport has worked so beautifully all over the world for brands to build themselves sometimes overnight and sometimes over decades to keep themselves relevant to audiences. Sport offers an athletes, and this is the part I want to stress on, offer a unique opportunity for people to embody the traits and the qualities that they have, which would, if you're able to do that as a brand, then irrespective of what medium you're using, the communication remains very consistent. So whether it is exposure over traditional television, traditional print, newer age OTT mediums, web mediums, OOH mediums, if you're able to embody some of those common traits, to me, especially in context of this conversation and this backdrop, I think that it's critical that we build more of those entities whose characteristics people can embody. Till now, we've failed as a marketing setup to build enough athletes, for instance, in the country, right? And when I say build, I mean to say not from a playing point of view, but from a marketing standpoint, right? If you were to draw a comparison for any ecosystem which had, let's say, leagues in the West and the number of athletes they have, for marketable athletes they have. So the answer to that question to me lies in the fact that if you are able to build those central value propositions that people can take from, then the medium debate would become sort of irrelevant, because then your communication across the mediums would be consistent.
Okay.
Which means,
go on.
Which means that you can focus on quantity or quality. If you are focusing on quantity, you are looking for short-term run. If you want the quality, then you have a long-term run. So easy is that.
That's a fantastic way of looking at it. Ashu, you wanted to say something there.
Yeah, so I'll throw open a proposal to people who've got entities here in terms of the leagues that you have. You need audiences, right? I can give you reach through my paper, print. You've got television, you've got digital. I need content, right? I need solid quality content, to what Mohammed said. You need to give me really good content in terms of that league. And when I say this, I mean it in terms of having a structure to that content. We are struggling. We are looking at putting together something for Delhi in terms of football. We have a league which is at the neighborhood level. It's about 2,500 teams, 25,000 kids play friendly football over 3 months. It's called HT GIFA. I'm trying to build a structure into the Delhi schools, the 250, 300 schools we are going back to, saying, build me a ranking system on your sport. And I will cover that through my content. I will do the ranking, I will cover it, we will do a annual league. I'll give you all the works in throw. I'll throw the entire 3 pages of sport at it. I'll build that for you. Brands will write that and you'll get the league to just take off. The problem we have is that I don't see enough quality content coming in terms of that league that comes forward. I've got my GIFA going and I'm now working with sports schools. I'm working with the CII guys, and we're doing something with the Delhi schools across the 400 schools. I mean, the basic thing of having a ranking, do I know which are the top 100 schools on football, tennis? I don't know, but I can tell you the top 100 schools on academics, right? So the parent knows where to put his child in, but if you want to go to your parent and say, which is the best football school, the top 10 in Delhi, no one knows. The top 10 for tennis, I don't know. And we're talking of football as the next big thing after cricket. Even for cricket, which are the top 10 schools in Delhi for cricket? And I want to cover that on content. I want to do a ranking. I want to highlight. I want to bring the spotlight to the 10 top kids in school, who are the top 10 who could become the next Sachin Tendulkars. Bring that the spotlight on the parents, on the coaches. But I don't have a structure, and therefore when I try and get into that area, I'm scared, because I might start reporting on something which might not be relevant and completely from an integrity standpoint.
Ashu, you said something which is so critical, and I want to just stop you there for a second.
I want to actually add on here, this brings me to the same point of awareness. There is awareness and there is association. Currently, there is lack of awareness amongst the viewers, amongst the consumers about what is existing. Only when I'm aware of it and I'm constantly trying to associate with it, then I'll get some returns, right? So that's what the point is here.
Can I also add to what you were saying? And I think the point you're making is so pertinent. Can I make a suggestion that to that you should also add a ranking system for athletes across sports? And if you look at the most developed sports markets, right, where sports are contributing hundreds of billions of dollars to the economy, their very fundamental of professional sport is actually built on the educational capability of sport and marketability at the educational level, right? So US, for instance, thrives on the school level and college level system of sport. And one of the top reasons they're able to do that is because they have that judgment not at the India team level, right? But right at the district level, at the domestic school level, and that's where you start picking the athletes, and the athletes, their parents begin to feel that this is a career, prospect for them. So I think that's absolutely critical, and if you could do it beyond schools, even to an extent on individual athletes,
you will get brands riding it, So
guys, all the budding entrepreneurs, in this room, please see there's a yawning gap out there. Various media players are saying, you know, if that gap were bridged, then, you know, there would be something to be done out there. I think that's the point that Ashu is making. But, you know, Ashu made another very brilliant point. And it is central to SportEX's main objectives, which is to throw up the future superstars. Unless we throw up future superstars and build them out, you are not going to be able to build sports as a sector in this country. And I think it is incumbent upon all the media, be it television, be it OOH, be it the print side, be it the digital side, to build up these local heroes, these national heroes. The ranking, etc. will come. But guys, if you don't talk up the people who do well in sports, sports as a category is never going to attract the best talent. If you don't attract the best talent, then you will get, you know, these odd situations where somebody just by fluke wins something at the Olympics kind of thing, and you'll be happy with that. There is no sustained sort of effort and a clear effort, and that's the role that I believe that media has to play. Ashu, I would like to suggest that, you know, as part of SportEX, SportEX is not my platform or his platform or his platform. I think it's a platform that belongs to all of us. Okay, as you have seen, we don't take you know, sort of sponsors who might want to tilt the conversation one way or another. It's a neutral platform. We would like to work with yourselves and other people to have a discussion on the media, okay, and the role of media in sports, as it were. It could be a smaller thing. And if all of you guys are willing, we'll slot that.
More than willing, absolutely. I'll be keen that we do that, yeah.
No, fantastic. Okay, so we will look at that, because are we not all in agreement that unless we build out heroes and the young ones at that, we're not going to get anywhere. Swapangi.
Absolutely, and I think the onus lies on our shoulders. We as media personnel should take it as our responsibility to build these people. Only then we'll have many Sachin Tendulkars, PV Sindhus and a lot more names that will pop up.
Just to add to that, you know, 400 Railways Digital, we did a fun thing on the Pro Kabaddi League, right? Because Tier 2, Tier 3 town penetration is very high in what we do. And we actually did a lot of player profiling of each of the Kabaddi players, where a lot of them were obviously not known. And we also did a lot of social media integration, because our screens are connected on the live. So Shah Rukh tweeting something about a team, or Amitabh tweeting something about a particular match, it would get amplified in all these Tier 2 towns, right? And the kind of uptick and feedback that we got was just phenomenal. So you know, so I think the local heroes in a lot of these leagues are also very important. So in fact, we're also thinking in the next year, can we create a property on our medium, calling it as local heroes, to build out guys that come from certain areas. So yeah.
So look, Sriranga, you know, this platform is one to evangelize sports, okay? And I would sort of appeal to all of you who are the media owners to take it upon yourselves to sort of promote sports a little bit. Because hey, you know, there will come a commercial benefit to all of you. If not today, tomorrow. But then you would be seen as being the people who are the catalysts for it, and you would benefit by it. So I think it's up to all of you to be growing a whole new sector out there in that sense. Porush, what do you think?
I think we built our company on that pretext, because SportEX was created for that, because the media companies were not really focusing. As I said, they had a cricket tab and not a sports tab sometimes. We got an award from Kabaddi Federation to promote Kabaddi in India. We are working with FMSCI to come up with a ranking system. As we all discussed, that ranking systems are important. So there was a gap, and it is being filled. I do feel that sometimes we are too despondent on the situation of sports, and every time we compare every sport with cricket. It's not that a lot of sports are not working in India. If you look at marathons, you cannot compare it with cricket ever. But Indians run. There are big properties in India. Marathons are running, and it's a multi-crore or a 100, 200, 300 crore business in India, maybe more. I don't know the figures. Similarly, golf is a big sport in India. So when you look at sports and you look at IPL, and that is the only way of looking at sports and success, I think that you are doing injustice to sports also that way.
Yeah, just a small piece. See, you have the reader, you have a brand very keen to participate, and you have content. And I'm giving you live examples of a lot of brands who come to us and we go back to them, trying to engage with them on bringing them on board for a event in the sports, on the sports pages. And I'll give you about examples of 20 of such brands who've come on board based on pure creative ideas. We've gone back to them saying, this is my sports page, this is the content I have, this is the interesting idea I have on a sport. The problem I have is that I'm not able to build a series around it. Coming to the point of building brands and markets, and the money is going back to those leagues, etc. If I can build that across 12 weeks, 14 weeks, 18 weeks of real good quality content, because I have the audience, I'm also interested in making money at the end of the day. So is the brand and so is the content, the league. I can really come back and give interesting, stuff. I can get brands who can, ride on it. The problem today is it's all one-off. I do HTGFA, as I said, 3 months. I have brands who've been with us for the last 4 years. They've gone nowhere because I give them the power of reach and there's good content at one end. But I want to have more of such events, but I'm willing to listen to ideas like that, and I'm sure so will the other mediums, and we'll take it forward.
Very quickly, Sapangit, you guys did the Pinkathon, yeah?
Yes.
And it was hugely successful, and you had a corporate sponsor for it. How difficult was it for you to convince a corporate sponsor to be doing something like that? And was it a one-off, or are they committed to doing it with you for the longer term?
So, the arrangement with Pinkathon was that we actually owned the entire Pinkathon series across 9 markets. It was very easy for us to convince the corporate sponsors, one of them being Tata Salt, because our philosophies were similar. We believed in women empowerment and we believed in women health, and Tata Salt also believed in that. So it was very easy for them to come on board and champion the cause. And believe me, we've seen very, very successful Pinkathons across key major cities. 2 months back we had Pinkathon in Delhi, and we had 15,000 women all running together to support the cause of breast cancer and bone health. And that's the kind of that's the kind of awareness that we want to build today amongst women, that your health is very important. And events like a Pinkathon help us to do that and give us the platform to do that. And there are brands like P&G, Tata Salt, who believe in our philosophy and come together to support the cause.
So, if this has started to do well for you, are you going to be looking at other sporting assets that you can give perhaps a social flavor to, or a razzmatazz flavor to, which could be on your channels?
Absolutely, why not? What is it that we as General Entertainment Channel want? We want something that engages the entire country. We want something that is entertaining. We want something that has a lot of emotional appeal. And if a sports can provide us that, I don't see a reason why we should not be associating with something like that. Because it gives you a sense of passion, entertainment, pride, and on top of it, reach.
Sriranga, assume now, you're really well funded, you've got, 500,000 screens or whatever it is, all right? And you talked about content. Suppose I'm funding you. What vision would you throw at me with regard to the content, and would sports be a part of that?
So, firstly, we are funded by Catamaran Ventures, Mr. Narayan Murthy's fund. So, going back to your previous panel, we have got...
I was saying in terms of future growth.
No. So
that's one level of...
Of course. So, I'm just saying, so there is, investments also coming into this space, and I don't know how you picked that number, but 500,000 screens is actually the market size that I actually think it'll go to in the next 3 to 4 years. And from your question of will sports play an important content role on this medium, I think absolutely. From utility angle, the amount of time space that we will have to provide to it for sports as a property will go up in huge ways. So, because I think that is, end of the day, also a lot of micro content that people want to consume, right? So when people are on the go, sports updates, player profiles, I think these are the things that they really want to engage with. And so many brands also want to reach out to them in that format. So it'll definitely play a big part. Yeah.
Varun, what do you think?
Well, the answer to that is that absolutely, and I think sport is going to be amongst, if not the top medium going forward. You know, I was having this debate in the break before this session with somebody that generally our media entertainment industry, which includes sport as a very small subset at this point, is disproportionately small for our population. If you look at the West, if you look at US as a developed market, the largest media companies in the US are roughly valued at market caps of about roughly between 100 and 120 billion dollars, whereas their largest automobile manufacturer is roughly at 60 billion dollars of market cap. Reverse that for us, right, and look at us as a market. Our largest media company, which is not even an Indian company, is an offshoot of a foreign company, is roughly about 12,000 crores annually, right, with a market cap of 35,000 crores. Whereas our largest automobile company in a market which has one of the lowest car ownerships in the world is 180,000 crores, right. So there is a massive scope generally for media to grow, and that will be powered essentially by the power of content. And that content beyond the movie and entertainment industry has to come from sport, because the values of sport are inherently built in human beings, right. That's what drives sport globally. So I think that this is just the beginning of the curve. In another 5 years, you will see sports content becoming all pervasive across multiple mediums.
Varun, I'd like to add here, you know, the pie is very small because there is lack of talent here. I mean, if you see in our country, how much of talent we have across other sporting games apart from cricket. The moment we will have impetus on different kinds of talent, I think there'll be a lot of interest that will be generated from the media companies to take that on and make it a bigger pie.
Just be aware that how much you're growing, that's much quantity it will become. So it's actually not good for the market at all. So if you want to grow on a stable, solid way, see what you are doing in the market, who you want to approach, make a good plan. Don't do anything without a plan, because later on, everything what you build up, you can destroy it in one day.
That's true. Mohammed, I'm not finished with you yet. Quick one, you know, having thrown that word of caution out there. What constitutes quality from a sports perspective?
It's very simple. Quality is when your customer is happy. That's it. Very simple.
Okay, so
so if you have agreement and you are creating content for a brand, and the brand is saying, this is my aim, I want to be there, and you need to help me to come there. So I want to approach, I want to have 30 million followers or 30 million. It's about the aim what you have. But when you come there, it means that the customer is happy. So then it's done.
So, you know, I do know that your football club, which is the pride of Abu Dhabi, is, you know, there's huge loyalty to it. What are the steps that you guys take in order for the quality to be acceptable to your fans who are widely sort of associated with your brand in a very, very aggressive way?
Yeah, this is the biggest mistake, what I told before already, what the football clubs do. The CEOs, the chairmen, etc. are sitting down and going to think about what the fans need to think about their club. This is the biggest mistake. So what we did, we stopped with that. We go on the street, we make a survey, we're going to ask the people, what do you think about Al Jazeera? What is your idea about Al Jazeera? And we did it again. Your opinion at that moment is not worth, it's nothing worth actually, because they are the customer. So you go into them, and the moment they give us the feedback, okay, that's the moment that you need to start to work, to make them happy again.
That's a fantastic answer, because in many of the businesses that I've been involved with, the management think that they know the answer, but actually they don't know a damn thing. They've got to go out and get it from the people. In fact, anything that you like has to be just you know, knocked off in that sense, because that's not what the public wants in that sense. Okay, Porush, going forward, okay, I've been asking this question of different forums, and you possibly would have noticed it. If you were to take a punt on 3 or 4 sports that are going to grow out in the next 2 or 3 years, what are those 3 or 4 sports going to be? They could be national level sports, they could be regional level sports. I mean, you could say that, there will be, this great focus on this sport, and it would do very well in this region, and it would be self-sustaining.
So I can back my answer with some data because we do check our analytics every day. We have huge following on wrestling, WWE, MMA. WWE is not the only promotion for wrestling, there are 20 more. There's a huge interest in wrestling in India. I don't know why we don't have a awesome wrestling federation, maybe a professional wrestling. I'm not a big fan of amateur wrestling. I know PWL is there. I really feel there's a vacuum in the space where professional wrestling can be big. I don't see any entrepreneur there. So that is one. I take a punt there if there is an entrepreneur there. Second will be motorsports. FMSCI threw data at me that they have 400 races in India every year, registered races. There are drag races in Bangalore. I feel everyone is a driver in India. Everyone thinks
You would say a racing driver in India, yeah?
Everyone can, they think they can drive fast. It's a young phenomenon. I think there need to be good leagues, a good, entrepreneur there. So motorsports, wrestling, I think I'll rest my case here for now. These are where I will like to kind of look at.
I'll have a go at that, and you'll probably see the difference between digital and print. So I'm the dinosaur here because they're the new guys. But I would go with the 4 core ones, which is you leave cricket out, you stay with hockey, badminton, and football, and try and make some sense out of those sports if you can in this country. There's content, there's audience, there is a structure. We just need to bring some sense back into it.
Okay, so we are talking about the near term. Sapangit, do you want to take a shot at which are the 3 sports that you think might be doing well? 3 or 4?
I think hockey definitely one of them. Yeah, football, because going by the different stats of the viewership and the excitement and engagement on these sports, I think hockey, kabaddi and football are the 3 ones that will really, I think, prosper in this country. Also hockey, because it's our national sport. Yeah, there's a sense of pride. It died over the years, but I think it's now slowly picking up, and it's on us to ensure that, hockey as a game comes up. Football, of course, for obvious reasons, is very popular. India is behind in terms of other countries, in terms of taking the popularity of football forward, but I think now the momentum has started on that. And I think these are the 3 which will go forward. And kabaddi, of course, I mean, going by how PKL has been doing, it's only been increasing in terms of revenues, viewership, engagement. I think these will be the driver key sports that will go forward.
Sriranga, do you want to take a shot at which are the 3 in the near term that you will put your bets on?
Yeah, 2 for sure, football and badminton. And football, I'm from Bangalore. We run the best Bangalore FC team in the country. Kidding, guys. But yeah, it's a well-run team. And
are you kicking the butts of the Delhi team?
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
We're on top of the league right now. So
right. I know.
So, and it's a really
the Delhi guys are somewhere around. Okay, they need to do something about this. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Well-run team, and badminton and tennis, I think, also has a huge opportunity. Just Mahesh tried a league, IPTL, didn't do that great, but I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So those are the 3 sports for me.
Okay. Have you got your 3?
Yeah.
No roundabout answers there.
No roundabout answers.
Okay,
So I think the top will have to be contact sports, which is mixed martial arts and wrestling for me, because we have a very large pool of athletes there. And
I can see a big smile on that part of the audience out there.
And deep interest in that category. Followed by football, purely because we have a very large pool of following for international football, and I think that's only going to grow. And third after that, badminton and esports, both, because we are a gamers country. We are couch potatoes, we love that. So esports is obviously going to do well. And badminton, because we have heroes in badminton to look up to and to pursue that sport.
Okay, that's fantastic. Porosh.
If I can sum it up, I choose those 2 because I want to do something there. Thing is, no one answered kabaddi, and no one would have answered kabaddi even 5 years back. But kabaddi was evangelized like anything. So any of these sports can be evangelized, rock star entrepreneur can make the difference, and it can be the third sport of India.
You know, that was the intention of this roundtable, frankly. My view, my humble view, I've been involved in creating several brands, is that you can create a brand of anything. It's how you project it, how you go out into the market, and there are novel ways of dealing with it, how you educate the market, and as Mohammed said, how do you deliver a good experience? If you get these basics right, I think you can create any brand. You know, I was talking to the Spanish team, the president of the Pelota game is there as well, and you know, he's going to talk about the huge success of that in Spain. You know, that is tomorrow. And nobody would have expected some of these games to come up from nowhere and just catch the imagination of the people, of the sports loving people in that sense. So my personal view is that you could create a brand in anything, okay? Because hey, nobody knows about any of these games, right? So it's a wide open market. If that is the case, then whoever is going to be putting in the big bucks in marketing, and marketing is not just about throwing out your brand, but it's about who are the personalities, how are you educating the people, how you're going out there and, you know, day after day, your foot soldiers are creating that awareness. I think it's all about that.
You know, IPL is actually a marketeer's case study. Nobody had thought ever that, you know, you will bring international players and Indian players together and create teams with them and create a formatted game. It just, everything fell together. The experience that you gave to the viewers was awesome, and everything kind of went for IPL.
Right. I'm not going to leave it there. You know, one last question before we open it up to the audience. Which sports in the country do you think are going to be the winners in the medium term? Okay. You know, none of you talked about basketball, by the way. Okay. And I want to understand, you know, some of these games that have potential for mass seeding, we as a panel have not addressed those, because there is something to be said for mass seeded sports, okay? Forget about the leagues, okay? Let's talk about creating a mass seeding program where hundreds of thousands of students are being trained in a particular sport, and the opportunity for brands to be associated with that, in that sense, okay? There may be no league in it, but I think that there is a huge opportunity out there where there may be hundreds of thousands of kids, millions of kids who are part of those mass seeding programs out there, and the opportunity for brands to associate with them. Forget about the fact that, you know, we belong to various channels and whatever it is. From a marketeer's perspective, is that not an opportunity? I just want to throw it open to the panel here.
I think it's a brilliant opportunity. As a marketeer, we are looking for opportunities of activations. You know, we go to different cities and try and activate a mall or a society or a stadium and different kind of arenas which are catchment areas for consumers. If there is something like that is present where I get a audience of kids and parents, because you know, for sports it's not just the kids, it's the parents which are involved too. I would jump at that opportunity as a marketeer to associate with it.
Right, anybody around the table?
Yeah, even I don't know the market of India very well, but I think that the esports have a really big reach and big potential. And in that case, just try to combine the esports together with your own activity. So before the event is going to start, invite all the children, play the esport game, and after that you have your own event, so you have a win-win situation. So,
to answer that question in a slightly roundabout-ish way, let me say that the success of any sport in the medium term is a direct function of access to infrastructure to play that sport, because that's what creates the large community around it. The answer to that question is absolutely basketball will be huge in the medium term, because we are heavily under-schooled as a country. We have the largest going to school or go to school population. Plot sizes for school have become significantly smaller, and basketball is actually one of the only physical sports that are any longer able to run in the space, right? Because cricket, football require huge amounts of spaces. So the answer to that is absolutely basketball will be huge, and I think once we are able to provide a professional system for athletes to go into, it will suddenly open up the opportunity in basketball. All of the other sports that will succeed have similar traits, right? And that's where I differ. I think hockey is going to die eventually because it's a very expensive sport to participate and run in. Mixed martial arts, because it requires a small space, only 2 athletes to fight, will go. Esports will grow. Basketball will grow. Any sport that requires easy access to physical infrastructure will grow in India because we have a huge volume of people who want to play that.
That's very insightful, Varun. That's a really insightful comment out there. Porosh, your thoughts? Because all you guys are going to be the guys who are going to be talking about all of this and talking up that sport.
So there are spectator sports, some sports are not spectators, some spectators don't find that as a spectator sport. I see that basketball is growing in India, but the amount of following that it has garnered, I am a bit skeptical about it. Similarly, if you are talking about mass seeding of sports, nothing is more seeded in India than table tennis. But table tennis, there was a try for a league. I'm not sure how successful it was. I don't see table tennis being a spectator sport. And if our criteria of success is something like a famous league, like an IPL, table tennis most probably will never go there.
Guys, I think we are talking around the issue, frankly. I had the opportunity of visiting Alibaba Sports in China. And I was blown out of my mind. And I have to share this with the audience out here. They're not talking about amateur sports. They're not talking about professional sports. They're talking about sports for the common man on a day-to-day basis. Nobody cares a damn about whether India wins a medal or whatever it is, or China wins a medal. They're not bothered about that. They're a business, okay? Let's talk about how do you and I engage in sports, and is there a business around that? Okay, the branding is for that business which links you and me to that opportunity of playing sport, if you see what I mean. That is the branding. It may not be with regard to basketball as a spectator sport, which is to be done as a league, etc., etc. Vinith and his gang are going to be doing enough of those things out there. He'll probably have his hands full, creating 10 leagues or helping out 10 leagues and negotiating their contracts with the broadcasters, etc. But I think that there are going to be hundreds of smaller opportunities out there which will link people, normal people, to sports out there. And I think therein lies that opportunity of building a culture of sports in our country, if you see what I mean. Okay. So gentlemen, this has been a fascinating sort of a discussion. And I can see Vinith's hand going, wildly up out there. Go on, Vinith. I had asked you to come to be part of this panel.
We've been talking about live through the day, but me included, we haven't spoken about non-live engagements in sport. Worldwide, it's quite big. So worldwide, if I have to give you a quick average of if non-live content garners almost about 35 to 40% of eyeballs and revenue vis-a-vis live content.
For the lesser educated, Vinith, can you just give some examples of non-live? What do you mean by that?
So non-live, let me give easier examples. Non-live could be a behind the scene, locker room, what happens in an IPL match, post-match or pre-match.
So yes, I think we have built a company on that. We don't have a right. We have few scorecards and live blogs here and there, but 90% of our business actually revolves around non-live content. And it is very, very important, and I'm happy to hear there's a 30% stat that there's 30% of consumption happens on non-live content. I do believe the analysis, the preview, reviews, the viral videos, they have a huge market. And a lot of this content is not available. A lot of media companies which actually hold rights, they only focus on selling live videos or spot rates on TV and everywhere, and sometimes they don't do justice to the non-live content. They could just itemize it, put it on a site, and you will see a lot of traction there. You will see a lot of people returning back for the highlights, even after 10 years. People, this day, that year is a very famous segment for SportEX.Asia, and we do it like 10 times a day. This day, that year, what all happened. So yes, I believe in that, and we have been working to improve that content consumption, that particular content criteria. We are masters of that, so obviously it is a big...
Mohammed, you guys run a full club, full of passionate fans. What do you do? How do you capitalize on the non-live stuff? Is that a significant portion of the efforts that you put in to delivering good quality stuff to your fans?
Yeah, one of the things you already saw, we are building a very big mall, city center Al Jazeera, where it will become one of the biggest in UAE. It's one of the things also to attract more fans and to make them happy, because one of the competitors, if you are talking about football of other sports, is the family leisure. So if father and mother is deciding to go with the children to go out or to go to the cinema of leisure, that means that they are the competitors at that moment of the football team or of the other sports. So now we are creating a city mall just to give them the idea, okay, you can go to the city mall, father and sons are in the stadium, and later on you can catch up and you go together also to have some drinks. So there's also an added value to create more fans and make them happy and keep them satisfied.
Yeah, in fact, specific to your question, 30% of our 3 pages is non-live. We don't call it non-live, as you just said. It's more in terms of analysis and post-match, pre-match. But it's 30, and this will only grow because live is all done and watched the night before, especially for people like us.
See, what typically happens...
Vineet, I think there is a lot of engagement in non-live. While you're watching the match and live is fine, I think there are a lot of conversations and content creation that happens in the non-live stream also. For example, Mumbai Indians, created this entire series where they wanted to ask consumers how they want to consume IPL, what is the strategy of the team should be, and there was huge traction on that. So I think that's a very big opportunity for brands to be present in the non-live part of the event.
So if you look at Premier League clubs, and I'm not too sure about La Liga, but Premier League clubs like Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, or even you look at NBA clubs, they themselves sell media rights and digital rights of so there's a Manu TV, okay, which people queue up to buy rights for. I'm saying that while we're talking about sport, non-live sport helps in building communities and fans in off-season. And to me, there is a huge opportunity in non-live because it's not only sporty content, but it also could be a GC content.
It's a very good tool for ambush marketing as well. Maybe you have your primary sponsor somebody else in live, and on non-live events you have another brand actually taking conversations forward.
Legitimate form of ambush, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can see Swapnil getting really excited about that.
I've done that before.
Okay, fair enough. You're the expert.
Just to add to this, we've actually taken this initiative. So around the Super Fight League, which is happening right now on MTV, we've actually are cutting 40 episodes over this season. So right now, we have done 19 episodes, content around content, what is actually happening behind the scenes. So we'd love for people to actually tune in. It's actually on our YouTube channel and on the VEQTA platform. Just add to that, content around content. It's very, very important. We've actually probably going to be the first league to actually produce this many series in a season. So what's happening in what we're doing. So it's really interesting. It's a good point.
I think as Indians we have a tendency कि अभी और कैसे पता चले और जो किसी और को नहीं पता वो हमें कैसे पता चले. So this content around content gives an opportunity to viewers to actually get to know a lot more than the live event.
Okay, next question please. Go on.
I was not asking, I was just kind of adding further to what they were talking about.
Okay.
I'll just add one thing here, which is, so I'm Nirmal from Xperia. I think the best example or the best representation of the power of non-live is a property called WWE, wherein most of the content is not live. And what it shows is that if you press the right emotional stroke cultural buttons, the content will work. So the consumer has the right reasons. If the property has the emotional traction, it will get watched. Unfortunately, non-live gets seen as repeats, and that is not sufficient.
Okay. Anybody else in the, well, there are plenty of hands up out there. Can you pass on the mic to somebody? Yeah. Go on. Please introduce yourself loudly.
Yeah, hi. My name is Lokesh Suji and I represent Esports Federation of India.
Lokesh, you should be very happy. Everybody's talking
Yeah,
about
exactly.
esports, man.
So, thanks to Mohammed and Varun, and for the reasons, I know why these guys are talking about esports is because Middle East esports is obviously gearing up. It's pretty big. Varun has already been, had a lot of discussions, so he's convinced. So my biggest worry, from the media as of today is that, our media is also acting as a followers, So they are not, showing any signs of being leaders. From esports perspective itself, none of the mainstream media has actually covered the news which said that esports is gonna be a demonstration sport in Asian Games this year. In China, Asian Games is gonna be a medal sport. Imagine such a thing wherein, nobody could have ever imagined video game or the competitive video gaming happening in Asian Games, or IOC actually having a discussion of including esports as one of the regular disciplines in Olympics. Such a big news. I think it was only Porush, Sportskeeda which covered it. So, so we need should be an eye-opener for the media houses which are present in this room to start focusing on esports. I'm telling you, esports is the next big thing. But obviously, I would really invite the media to please come up for the tomorrow's sessions which we are doing. So that is where, so that is something, so you covered a lot of, there's so much of a content which is available on esports. But unfortunately, when we send all the PR news and other things, so none of the main, whether that's HT or whatever, people don't cover it because they are not able to see what we are able to see and where we are. So our media houses need to be very forward-looking organization, very open to all those kind of a thing. That is how eventually the sports overall will grow.
Lokesh, I sort of interceded on your behalf, and I've already done this side deal with Ashu on your behalf out there. It's just $1 million.
No, so I don't have a difference of opinion on that. The fact remains that I have 3 pages of content. I have an audience I need to serve every day in the morning. They are kind of clustered in boxes. We know what they like to consume. But for your, the way we now, address this is that we've categorized ourselves into 3. So we've got the core sports, the topical ones of the day, cricket, hockey, whatever. Then we have the aspirational piece sitting out there, which is, sport like rallies and, possibly e-sport as well. And I know it occupies a very small space. Challenges are 2. One is, of course, knowledge itself, right? We run a newsroom. Not everybody would know about e-sport as much as, say, you would, because that's your business. So there's an education that has to happen both ways. And there is also an audience I need to serve in the morning, which we know is consumes it in a certain way. But happy to take it on, and I will talk about this to my editorial as well in terms of how can we promote a lot more of this. But as you said, every page costs, so it's content, and we need to be sure that we're going for the right, content versus audience.
I think also in this phase it will be very good to make a marketing analysis. Just go into the market and check, you know what I mean? And do it together. Together you are very strong, to be honest.
I don't know if you know that MTV aired You Cypher. We just aired the season finale. And that's because we believe that gaming is a very, very big sport going forward. And the results are for you to see.
But I want to this point, while I know every sport is critical and important, we do this panel every month in consumption patterns. And, cricket is at, as I was giving those data statistics, is at 91 of 100 of our readers, 91 say we want to read about cricket more and more. Football is at about 67. It was at 26 5 years ago. It's at 67. And then it plummets, okay? You got 3 sports, tennis, hockey, and I'm forgetting the other one, it's definitely not esport, is at about 20 odd readers on 100, right? 100 of my readers, there are only 20 who want to read about tennis, hockey. Hockey is at 26, that's our national sport. Right? I don't know where esport will fall, so the point he's making. So those are the choices we need to make. So there are hard choices at times that you need to make in terms of consumption and what you want to put out there. Sure.
Lokesh, you know, while I hear what Ashu is saying, and Vinit, I want you to come in on this for a second. Please, somebody can you give him the mic, please? You know, I'm 100% of the opinion that unless you educate your end consumer, your numbers are not going to show up. So I think that a specific amount of effort has to be put in to educating the guys, because otherwise how is it going to come up from 10 to 67 or whatever that number is? So I think that every product that gets conceptualized and put out there in the market needs to work really goddamn hard, and that is true for any product category. Any product category across any sector, that you've got to go out and do that work day after day, so that in 2 years' time, those numbers will suddenly shoot up. One last question here, then I have a question for Vinit.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. See, cricket wouldn't have been the same without the 1980s.
So, is somebody asking? I actually wanted to kind of, you know, madam, this answer is to you. I know you guys did that UCipher thing. You know, it's very exciting, and really thank you to put up UCipher on MTV. But UCipher, and I speak on the behalf of the community, UCipher is eventually looked upon as a failure. And that is where our biggest worry was, because UCipher is more of a roadies for the gamers, which is broadcasted on MTV. It's not a pure play esports. And that is where typically the way esports happens across the world is very different the way it was being portrayed on MTV. And that is where we really want, you know, the media houses, and I think Ashu made a very valid point that, you know, it's a lot of, you know, when you look at the editorial and all those, you know, people don't know about what gaming is, forget esports, right? So that is where, you know, as a federation, we are happy, very, very happy to work with anybody who wants to understand this domain in depth, so that, you know, whatever we actually produce, you know, it actually makes a lot of sense for the community. Right. Thank you.
You know, thanks for your feedback. I have two things to say here. You look at it as a failure, I look at it as a start. There has to be somebody who has to start with e-gaming, yeah, and we made a start with that. And because we are an entertainment channel, there are some tweaks that you need to make to a format to appeal to the audiences at large. And that's what we've done.
Okay, I got to cut this conversation right here, because this is not about success and failure. Trust me, when you're building out a market, there will be many sorts of products that will come out there who are of a similar nature, and the education and the marketing of all of those people is going to go and build that whole market. So I think the more the number of people that come out, actually you learn from them, okay, what is it that they didn't do right, etc., etc. So I think from the perspective of SportEX, everything needs to happen out there. The more the number of people that get associated with different products, the better it is. The people who will become successful will learn from what the other guys didn't do well out there. And I think this is a forum to be discussing that. I don't think we are really bothered about who became a success and who became a failure. We are talking about sports as a consolidated whole. Yes, the gentleman in the front. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Kenny. I'm from Bangalore. I work with Sports Force. My question is not really a question, just an observation, more in the sense. 1983, you know, we won the World Cup. Cricket got a big boost up, right? IPL wouldn't have been the same if Dhoni's team hadn't won the T20 the previous year or the same year, right? Similarly, success of any sport depends on the kind of champions or world players that we develop. Now, in all the discussion that we have, what I've been hearing is, even on the finance panel, is that let sports come up and then we will monetize it. Or we are the sharks to kind of get a huge bite of it, right? But I don't see people saying, hey, We want to invest and actually develop these champions, and that's not happened at all.
Who wants to address that? But I think
I'll try and address that because we're working with CII as a body, and we're trying to work with industry, with the government, and I completely agree. The problem is that where do you invest and how do you invest? I'm trying to do it in football, as I give you an example. I have the federation at one end that I'm working with. I have various other bodies that keep coming back into it. Where do you put the money? What's the infrastructure? What is the structure to the way the teams get built? It's just, it's a massive, it's very, very difficult. And as a media house, I'm saying this. I mean, we'll have other powers. You will not get the champions. That's my belief till you get the basics right. And I think we're going down the wrong track. Get the basics right on whatever sport we want to pick in terms of content. Build it from a demand and supply. See, the issue is there is no demand. As a parent, I'm not going to put my kid in sport because I just don't know. It's a black hole. There are going to be 10 guys who's going to do it. It's not and we are working with CBSE. So I'll give you an example. We've now got the Navodyalas and the Kendra Vidyal to make sport compulsory from class kindergarten to 8 as physical as a sport and even as a subject. But that's just a start, and we haven't even talking to private schools. Private schools are like telling us, hello, I mean, what are you talking about? It's academics. If I don't do this, And so there's so much out there. I'm not saying it can't be done. I think there's a start that's been made, but you've got to get the demand side right first.
I think
supply will happen.
Ashu, I think, if I may just address you in half a minute, and I think we'll just cut it short out there. Right through the day, that has been the central part of the discussion. Right through the day. In fact, the minister said that, the HRD minister has halved this thing so that more people can play and more younger sort of stars can come out of there, starting with that. Just on this panel, we were discussing that you cannot create a brand of a sport unless the sub-brands are there. And the sub-brands are the stars of the sports. Okay, so how do you create them? That has been the subject matter of the discussion out there. Even if you run an FM radio station, it doesn't mean a damn thing. The RJs are the stars out there. If you run a television station, it doesn't matter if your colors unless you have the stars of, the various serials out there. It's really the serials that are anchoring the revenue part of that. So I think your point is very well taken in that. May I ask Vinith out there? Vinith, Bill, did you want to ask a question before that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to MTV. I mean, it's the first time with Super Fight League actually got into live sports, from my understanding, which I think is a very good dynamic positioning on their part because they have the right target audience. So I think, which is credit to them, you've got to be brave, you've got to take different moves. So I think having a young product like us on there, I think it'll just add value to what they're doing as well.
Bill, they'll keep you on for the next 3 years after that statement, okay? No, look, I think you got a fantastic product. I think you're packaging it really well. I wish there was a little bit less blood on that damn thing out there. Otherwise, the Delhi drivers are going to go crazy watching that. But having said that in jest, Vinith, this is a serious question for you. You deal with leagues at one level. You try and put everything together. You try and talk to all the agencies, your own agencies and other agencies as well. What is the disconnect out there? Do you think the agencies and, the fact that, you belong to an entity that has several agencies out there, are they sort of getting switched on to sports? Are they getting switched on to the complexity of media allocation? Or do you think that, whenever new things come up, there is always that 5-year gap before people actually realize that they have to do something differently?
So, I didn't get the disconnect point. I mean, is the question about disconnect or the connect?
Because otherwise it's going to take far longer for sporting assets that start up to be able to get the revenue. Even if they start showing some numbers and they start doing some great things. Because the people who are media planners or whatever it is, no disrespect meant to them, but they are not fully sort of up to speed with how they have to show ROI in all of these different media.
Okay, now I get it. So firstly, sports is a long haul, okay? I think about a couple of minutes back we spoke about cricket and someone said that if Dhoni's team wouldn't have won the T20 World Cup, IPL wouldn't have been IPL. Perhaps yes and no. What we tend to miss in the entire ecosystem is cricket has been at the helm of affairs at the grassroots and on television for about 15 years before IPL, yeah. The structure BCCI has put together for cricket existed for 35 years before IPL. The other leagues, other sports have actually taken the shorter route to popularize the sport and then build the grassroots. Yeah. So I was just talking to Bill about the similar point that unfortunately in India, live sport is looked at as a media property. Worldwide, sports is about building perceived value, not measured value. So I don't know how many of people in the room will understand the Indian landscape from a media standpoint, but in India, including people like us, we buy sport on the back of media value, which is a principal disconnect, and I'm willing to accept it, right? The problem is, we don't have an option but to look at the media because there is no grassroots today. We're talking about grassroots development.
Any comments there?
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, look, if you notice, I haven't left him, I'm sitting next to him. So you've just got to be consistent, right? And I've sat with him wherever he's gone 4 or 5 times just to keep knocking on the door. Doors will open, but the art to that is consistency. You know, I think that's really important.
Okay, that's
Sorry, can I just add one small thing? First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Avi Mittal. I'm the Global Director for Super Fight League and Super Boxing League. So I very closely work with Bill and follow his vision on what we have created. So earlier, while Bill was just networking with the other panel earlier, I was right here, and you had asked a question, sir, to each one of them about picking the next 3 sports which, they think which will build in India. And there was a lot of discussion on the grassroots level part of it, and it was, pushed on about grassroots growth. But if you see, India itself, the grassroots of India started from Kushti. Today, like how Bill also puts it in a very straightforward way, in every village there is an akhada for sure. That's the cheapest form of sport that can come and build on. We have more than 10 million different forms of mixed martial arts available in India, right? And from down south, Kalayapattu was one of the maybe origins of this combat sports which came out of India. So what I request to all the the great media forms right in front of me over here is give this sport that opportunity for it to grow. When you all said about building stars, yes, that's what we are doing, but we're picking up if through all our different mediums, which is whether it is contenders, whether it is catwalk to the cage, whether it is challengers, we are making these stars from nowhere. Like one of our boxers is a lead actor in an upcoming movie, which is Mukkebaz by Anurag Kashyap. Ritika Singh from Sala Kudus was again one of our finds that came up from the ranks of SFL. So we are building those stars. But honestly, I still feel that MMA and boxing need to be given a lot bigger platform in our country, and that's my humble request to all of you all present over here. Because, if given that right platform, if you see some of our back-end stories and all the content that we have put up on our YouTube channels, we have gone right into their homes and picked them up from literally nowhere, from very humble backgrounds, where their families will tell you all about the backgrounds and how they've come and built up, where through our gyms and through all our programs, where we also provide them like year-round, remuneration as well as build them as stars. So just what we just keenly request is for the support towards this sport as well.
Right. Thank you for that. I think that that's well put, and that you've actually spoken on behalf of all of the fledgling leagues and entities that are starting up. They do require a little bit of pampering from the media, a little bit of support, which is going to be beneficial not only for all the leagues and sporting assets such as yourselves, but for themselves in the medium term, because they would have helped to grow it out in that sense. So that's well said out there. Anybody else? One last question, and then I have a quick request from everybody.
I would just like again to add to what Bill and Vineet said on the media delivery bit of sports. You see, it's purely a function of what are the metrics that are chosen to measure the ROI. The key metric in India happens to be media deliveries, the eyeballs and reach and stuff, the quantified kind of deliverables. One deliverable, one metric which is huge in the West is what it does for the brand. And that's purely a function of how the Western audiences engage with sports as a domain. And I think our consumption of sports is very different in India, at least now, currently, than it is in the West. And that's why we look at media deliveries. So sports, or for that matter, no entertainment option or avenue can be ROI exempt. It's purely about what are the matrices that you choose. In India, it happens to be the media deliveries right now.
Okay, Vinit, last comment.
So having said that, on a positive note, we are, I think, being too harsh to ourselves as a country, as an economy. We are forgetting that ISL, being a 4 to 5 season old league, generates about 200 crores worth of central revenues. That's a lot of money, a complete new money that comes into the system. We are forgetting that PKL generates 150 crores worth of revenue every year, which is a complete new stream of money which have come into the sporting economy which didn't exist 10 years back. So overall, if I have to say, leave cricket aside, we have 500 to 600 crores worth of revenues which are coming into the sporting ecosystem, which is not bad at all. IPL itself does about 3,000, 3,500 crores. I'm talking about sponsorship as in not the television one, the ground one, right? That's a lot of money, yeah? So having said that, life is not that bad. I think we have embarked the journey of building a great place for a sporting economy for tomorrow. And I think forums like this will obviously help us better ourselves over time. Yeah, so I think we should celebrate the journey that we have embarked towards making India a sporting nation.
Thank you, Vinit. And I think that is the spirit of SportEX.Asia, which is one step at a time, one person at a time. All the people who have been here all day have got perspectives on what the sector is about, what will it take to grow it, and when is the time to invest, today, tomorrow, or when it's $1 billion worth. Those are calls that each one will need to make individually. I would like to thank all the panelists for that wonderful and insightful discussion. Thank you, Varun. Thank you, Mahmood. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Parush, Ashish, Ashu. Thank you, Sapngeet, and thank you, Sriranga. Gentlemen, you have a paper and pen out there. I would greatly appreciate if you can just put down 3 or 4 points that come to your mind with regard to today's, how the day panned out. What are the things that appeal to you, and where do you think we can make some improvements out there? Would greatly appreciate if you can spend just 2 minutes to just write out some things out there so that we can take those suggestions in mind when we are doing the follow-up sessions on SportEX.Asia. That would be very, very helpful as well. So would greatly appreciate your help on that.
Is it just possible for one last question, please? Like a really small question?
Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Vivek and I'm from Bombay. I just wanted to ask that in terms of sports infrastructure, which would be the sports that would have like a drastic improvement in terms of development? I think so you said about basketball that it would really improve because of like the plot sizes of schools. But like which sports like you would say would really improve, and not just schools, like I mean would there be corporates that would develop like a lot? Would there be sports associations that would develop like a lot? The government, of course. Could you speak like a little bit more on like the infrastructure side, please?
So I'm not going to take too much time to answer that. We can have a lengthier discussion on this post this, but offline discussion. But let me just quickly in one point address that. See, India has its own unique dynamics to land as an entity, right? We have fragmented land ownership, which is very expensive in retail to buy. We see that even in government projects when we are trying to implement creating a highway or doing anything, right? So that creates a natural hurdle for sports infrastructure to be built and monetized. Typically sports which have some sort of assistance either from the government or in case, for instance, in case of basketball, by the natural virtue that schools have a smaller plot size and find it easier to create one space to play, will naturally play out. Sports like MMA will be benefited from the fact that specialist gymnasiums, which are coming up now, to train athletes, it's a different form of fitness apart from being a sport itself. But yes, it will require some degree of assistance from outside, including the government. Otherwise, natural sports infrastructure is almost unviable in the country.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I think this has been a wonderful session, and we've had some wonderful sessions. I think the finance section before this was fabulous as well. The session with the minister was outstanding. He never does these interactive sessions, but we somehow persuaded him to doing that. While he was going away, he commented to me that he commended the people out here for asking all those insightful questions, and I'm sure that's going to play on his mind. He's asked to see some people after this, so you know, the evangelizing part of SportEX.Asia you know, will help in that whole process. Gentlemen, please do take a minute or two to just write out your thoughts. It'll help us to deliver a better product to you next time round, to help grow sports and to evangelize sports. Thank you very much. Vikram, can you just come up with the... Thank you very much.
Guys, just do take 2 minutes to just write out 3 or 4 points, okay? Even if they are just bullet points, no problem. Thank you.